Hello and welcome to episode 19 of Pacific Horseplayers right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Meagher, joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Mr. Ryan Anderson, as we will actually be joined by two other guests to help us out with the Coast to Coast Pick 5 that will occur on Saturday, February 22nd. Of course, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button, like button, notification bell, all that good stuff. Before we get into matters, of course, let's discuss the administrative stuff. Of course, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Of course, you can check out our Power Picks tip sheet. You can check that out on the website here at hhhracingpodcast.com. Wanted to get those in real quick. I'll have a couple more things that I want to bring up. But before we do that, let's check in with you, Ryan. Got a hell of a coast-to-coast sequence. Maybe not the greatest in terms of quality of fields, but boy, was it difficult. And I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, every leg is just impossible pretty much. There's maybe one leg with, 2-star difficulty. The rest are 4 or 5 stars. There's a couple of those. And I mean, watch out. There's going to be some prices that come in for sure. I think Jackson said it in the pre-show. If this paid under 10K, it would probably be a disappointment.
Yeah, it could definitely go up and certainly could pay quite a bit. We covered it a couple weeks ago, and I think that sequence paid at least 5 digits. So I would expect something very similar. Similar in some of the races are difficult, and I just from a single perspective, I think it's really tough to try to narrow down in some races. So before we get into that, we'll see who's here. I'll scroll up to the comments. We've got Steven Grutner. I believe he was here at 5:55 p.m. And we're recording the show at 9:30 Eastern on Tuesday night. Just wanted to beat Katie, which if you get there at 5:55, I think you're going to do just that. Katie was here at 8:54. Of course, she's early, ready for the fun. Jim Pilars is here. Hello, all, ready for the show. Ryan, I see your chat. Matt Miller says the gang slowly assembles. Of course, the boss is here. Mr. Howard Kravitz here early. Very interested to hear what the guys think of the Coast to Coast. And then the Baffert Runner and Bullard in the Rebel. Yes, we will be discussing that at the very end of the show. We've got Michael Austin in the chat. Hello. And it seems like we've got more people coming in. But I think we can go ahead and bring on the two people that we have to help us out with the sequence. First, from the Ohio State University and co-host at Benton and Boozin, Mr. Charlie Freeman, and from Irvine, California, and recent champion of the Super Bowl, Mr. Jackson Muniz. Fellas, how are we doing tonight?
It's good to have another fellow champion sitting on this podcast with me. I've been needing some fellow winners to be around me to feel a little
road champions down there.
More, yeah.
Road champions, I love it. I'm excited for this sequence because it's absolutely impossible. I will be texting you guys on Saturday for a group ticket because I think that's the only way you're going to hit this thing because you need a big budget.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. Two things I want to go over before we get into the sequence. We are very close to 5,000 subscribers. Just wanted to add that in there. So, of course, you can hit the like and notification bell. But more importantly, hit the subscribe button because we are very close. I believe we're around 4,900 right now. So just a couple more of you, and we can hit that milestone. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, just confirmed yesterday, the show that Ryan and I are doing next week, episode 20 at PHP, will be handicapping Big Cap Day. Very big day, of course, at Santa Anita. And we'll be joined by Caleb Keller of FanDuel TV. So very excited about that. Looking forward to talking about that card with him. Of course, I'll take that off. And I think we can go ahead and get right into it. The first race of the Coast to Coast Pick 5 on Saturday is this race right here. It's race 10 at Gulfstream. The sequence starts at 5:13 Eastern, 2:13 Pacific. Starts with an allowance optional claiming a $25,000 mile on the turf. I think it's important to note that there are 2 Gulfstream turf races. Actually, there's 5 turf races that we'll be talking about in the sequence, which I think just adds on to the difficulty of the sequence. The first turf race, race 10, is actually run where the rails are at 73 feet. And then the last race at Gulfstream, race 12, that's actually run at 0 feet. So thought I'd add that in there. This one's run at 73 feet. Got a field of 10. Morning line favoritism, probably to either the French bred, the Louisa Beret, or probably the 8 Madame Mischief, if I had to guess. I'll go ahead and get our picks up on the screen for this first leg. And we are very different, as a lot of the races are just like this. I am going 2-8-10. Ryan's going 10-3-2. Charlie going 3-8-2, and Jackson going 6-1-8. Charlie, I'll start it with you, with Mr. South Beach himself, going with the 3 spinning colors for Waylu and Mark Hennig.
Yeah, this is a very interesting horse to look at when you look at the last time out. This was a horse I actually got to watch in person. Was coming off of a bit of a layoff from that effort in November in New York, and then got to the lead, was setting reasonable fractions, actually pretty fast fractions, quite honestly, but looked comfortable to it, wasn't really being asked much by Lionel Reyes. And then as they approached the turn at the very beginning, I believe I think Jorge Ruiz maybe, had fallen off at the start, and they, after the race, had blew it dead, but they were trying to blow it early. And so Lionel, being on the lead, was the first one to see it, and he pulled up on this horse. And of course, ended up being a no contest. But even though, we didn't get to see a full race, I still really liked what I saw. 1:33-2 is a pretty decently fast time on the track. And again, going 22-3 and 46-2, even though we like to call it Gulfstream Speedway, are still some serious fractions. Obviously now gets a little bit of a layoff coming back now for Mark Hennig. But I think if this horse can build off the last 2 efforts, again, I know we don't have a buyer, but you can see from the time form, it was pretty standard with the last effort. I think spinning colors could be pretty tough here.
Yeah, I think she's certainly one to consider. Ryan, you've got her in second. It looks like she's primarily a speed type, and it looks to be like there is some pace in here. Do you think she can kind of sit the trip that she did 4 back, where she was able to get that 81 buyers? That way you got her in second?
I just think that she's got some tactical ability. She can sit from a couple lengths off of it. She can go to the lead. She can kind of just play the brake, and Waylu can play the brake and see what he wants to do from there. So logical horse. Third off the layoff too doesn't hurt. So a horse I wanted to use underneath.
Yeah, it looks like Jim Pilares was hoping that you had some warning lights for this race. I think you'd have to be quite the expert to get some of these right, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I was slacking on that. I'll get back to that though.
I hear you guys. I do think there's a decent amount of speed. I do think this is certainly a very tough race to start, as we'll talk about. I think a lot of them are tough. Jackson, you have a very interesting horse that none of the 3 of us have in the top 3, and that's the 6 Big Beautiful for Javier Castellano, and not Rick Dutro, but Anthony.
Yeah, this is, this race has more process of elimination than anything, going through the rest of the field. I mean, I looked at the 10, who has absolutely no turf breeding, but some good dirt figures. A horse like the 8, who you mentioned, is going to take some money, but she's 1 for 15. A lot of second place finishes. The 3 is okay. The horse is the Savvy horse coming out of that state bred race that wasn't that good, and she got 4th in that race in stakes, but it wasn't a great field. I just wanted to land on a horse like this that has a lot of upside in a field that I didn't think a lot of them did. And I was impressed with her last race. I mean, she won going away. It was really impressive. What did she beat that day? I don't know, probably not much, but she did it the right way. And the 3 horses that have come out to run in that race, all have improved their figures by at least 6 points. Some of them even a little higher. You can see right there, 8 and 13 points. So you can make a case that figure is a little too low. And in looking at her pedigree, it's, European all over it. So she's going to probably improve on the turf as well. So I wanted to give her a look in this race. I will admit that I would like to do some more work on the Euros. I couldn't find any workout videos on them. So I definitely want to see some workout reports once those are available, because those 2 could be dangerous, and I didn't know what to make of them at this point.
Yeah, the 3 horses you mentioned actually all came back and won. You saw they were italicized. So it looks like it's a pretty good race. She also did that off of almost a year-long layoff. So thought that was pretty impressive. Just a matter of whether she's able to match that and then maybe even add on to that, because it looks like there could be some salty foes. But you're right, Jackson. I think it's probably tough to judge a lot of these others. And I think the Euro is a big question as to whether she has enough talent or not. We'll go to the 8, who you did mention, Jackson. I'll go to you, Charlie, because I believe everyone's spoken. Madame Mischief, she ran a really nice 3rd, I thought, behind anybody but you, who actually could be anybody. And then Calispera, who was dropping in from Stakes Company last time. But again, the problem with her, 1 for 15, certainly likes to run in the money. Just a matter of whether she can get her picture taken.
Yeah, and she's ultra consistent, obviously, aside from the Laurel effort on the dirt, which clearly she didn't want. But you look outside of that, and you see a ton of numbers in the 70s and low 80s that absolutely fit in the spot. Ran against Ozara, Militat, Life's an Audible, Style Points. I mean, his run against the best Spalliday has clearly run against the best competition in this field by a significant amount. And I think the reality is, if every horse runs to their best, I think you have a legitimate argument that she's the horse to beat. But the natural concern is, in spite of that, you can see even if she hasn't always been the favorite, There's a pretty long stretch of her career. Essentially, every race since, that those optional claimers for 75 N1Xs through every race until her last one, where she's been 5-1 or lower. And yet, despite that, hasn't won a single race. So she's one of those that always takes money, always runs a race, but just doesn't quite get it done. That being said, I think Jorge Delgado is a fantastic trainer and a good one to have here. And Edgar Zayas is an underrated trainer, as Howard actually, I was about to say, just pointed out in the chat. Yeah. With a lot of these jockeys gone, I agree there's chaos, but I also think it means it's a good time to try to rely on those who have experience here. And Edgar Zayas, you could argue, is one of the best turf jockeys at Gulfstream.
Yeah, Zayas is certainly one that benefits over the spring and summer when some of the bigger names go down to California, Kentucky, New York, of course. So look for the Zayases, the Bravos, the Edwin Gonzalez's of the colony to pick up those good mounts and get some wins on Saturday and for the rest of the weekend. This is actually the horse that I have on top, and I do have a lot of questions marks with her, but the thing that I keep going back to is, Christophe and Miguel Clement are not 22% because they put their horses in bad spots. So even though she was in a Group 3 last time, I just feel like this is the right spot. And if this horse is ready, I think she's going to get it done. I do agree with the point that others may bring up that a little sharp for her. I think she does prefer maybe a little give in the ground, but she's been down in Florida for a long time. You can see by the works. Don't know who she's been working with or how she's working. But I'm just going to trust the fact that Clement's got her in a good enough spot. And just another one, Joe Bravo, who obviously I'm not the biggest fan of, but he is going to get some live mounts. I think this could be one of them with this Euro getting Lasix for the first time. Ryan, you've got her in third. Anything to add? And then we'll let you talk about your top choice, the 10.
Yeah, not too much to add. You pretty much nailed everything. I have this one in third just because I think she may need one off the break, and maybe it is a little bit too sharp, but she might just have the best kind of back class to get to.
Yeah.
Well, and then, for the number 10, she's a Tempest for Bill Mott. I guess if you go back to those last 3 races, this one ran at Santa Anita. They were all in the dirt, but they're all very, very good races. Ran behind Kinza twice, ran behind Where's My Ring, ran behind Copian. Those are all excellent dirt horses. Didn't like the winter aqueduct track, shocker. So Bill Mott sends this one down here, and she's been working out pretty steadily. He's a fantastic trainer. Sometimes he just gets horses to jump up and really wake up and show something new when they get onto the turf for the first time, or vice versa. So that's kind of the angle I'm taking. I think this one has some back races that she can get to that are better than a lot of this field has ever run, and I wasn't in love with any of the horses' turf form.
Yeah, I mean, she's got numbers, and even though she doesn't really have any turf breeding at all, she's probably one of the classiest, if not the classiest individual in the field. And it's kind of the same thing with Clement. Mott picks his spots, and he's got to work over the turf with this filly. So if she runs big, I would not be surprised at all. Last horse we'll touch on, and then we'll move on to the first race at Santa Anita, is Voodoo Magic. Edwin Gonzalez, we mentioned. Cherie DeVos, a trainer that obviously is very talented. She had a nice day at Fairgrounds last Saturday. Jackson, you've got this filly in second. What'd you like about her?
Yeah, I touched upon it a little bit. The 1 and 2 are pretty interchangeable for me at this point, just so early in the week. I want to see some workout reports on this one. This one just, I feel like, has a little bit more upside. Her figures as a 2-year-old compared to the 2 were a little bit higher, so that's why I just leaned on the 1. She took some money in her first start in America, didn't know running, and hasn't been seen since, so that's a little concerning. But, Cherie knows what she's doing. Obviously, this horse is drawn really well, so wanted to give her a look. Really going to need to see some workout reports to see what's going on with this field.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Tough race to start off the sequence. I'm going 2-8-10. Ryan's going 10-3-2. Charlie's going 3-8-2. And Jackson is going 6-1-8. I'll try to go ahead and get the right order of race number that we will be talking about. I believe the next race that we're going to be talking about is this race right here. Race 5 at Santa Anita. The 3 Santa Anita races start with a maiden special weight race. Purse is $60,000, going a mile on the turf, of course. All 5 of them are turf. This is for Calbreds, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Got a big field of 10. Morning line favoritism, probably either to the 1 Speed of Elon or the 2 King of Clubs. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the screen. And we are a little bit different again. I'm going 4-1-2. Ryan's going 8-1-2. Charlie's going 2-8-1, and Jackson is going 3-2-10. Ryan, let's go to you with the 8 Miles Finch for JJ and Sadler, who I believe could be actually one of the morning line choices as I now think about it. What'd you like about this horse?
Yeah, I mean, you could go a lot of different directions in here. So I ended up going with the trainer who I believe in kind of the most off this angle. John Sadler going sprint to route on turf, adding the blinkers, is 6 for 8 in the money, with 2 of those being wins. A lot of them coming in the maiden rank. So I wanted to take this one. This one's been a hard trying horse at this level. It just fits here. Stretching back out, the effort to back. Didn't get tired as much as just kind of lost focus, which is why I like the blinkers on. Also gets second time Lasix. Obviously, JJ in the saddle. He's one of the best riders out west when Pratt's not there. Pratt, obviously. Oh, actually, he will be in town because Oakland moved. But regardless, I'm taking Juan here. I know Pratt's on a different mount, but that doesn't matter. Juan can ride the turf better or as good as anybody pretty much out there. So I like the trainer angle here. I think he fits, and I think this is where he gets through. And, of course, the old Jackson paired up Buyer Tops angle going forward for the 4th career start.
Pretty close, isn't it? Save the Clock Tower makes a good point. Miles Finch was an AE. I believe that was yesterday because today's Tuesday. Yes, that was Monday. They ran on President's Day. Yeah, he's an AE scratch there. So seems like a pretty logical spot. Charlie, you got him in second. Anything to add with this 3-year-old colt?
No, I think Ryan honestly nailed everything. I just think this one's been consistent, been running against some decent fields relative to the rest of this field, and I agree with him completely. I think this one could just be sitting on a big effort.
I would agree with that. Let's go to you, Jackson. I am thinking very similarly, as I believe you are going price shopping with the 3 Anon, coming off of a nice second behind Sir Rocket at 50-1. I don't know if you'll get that this time, but should be a decent price.
Yeah, this race feels like a good opportunity to beat some of these shorter price horses. I hate betting 3-year-olds against older this early in the year. I mean, it's middle of February, and these horses are not at the same level at this point, and they're only getting 7 pounds. I think that's not a big difference. That's not usually a big enough difference. I always try to beat the 3-year-olds because they often struggle at this level. So I looked at the 3 horse. I thought he ran perfectly fine his last 2 starts. First on the bench, kind of just ran in place, galloped out okay. That came against Open Company, maiden claimers, but it was Open Company. And then last time, he ran really well against state brides at this level. He actually broke really well. He was right behind the speed and kind of got taken back by the eventual winner, and then found himself really far back, made a late run, and just missed to Sir Rocket, who seems like he's a pretty nice prospect for Neil Drysdale. Galloped out really well again, drawn really well inside. I think that 2 sprints to a route is classic angle. And I think there's just a lot of things pointing this in his direction for today. And like you said, he's going to be a big price just based on the connections alone. These connections do not get bet. You're not going to get 45-1 like you did last time, or 49-1, but he could be 7-8-1, and he has the highest last turf figure in the field. So I feel pretty good about this pick on top.
Yeah, I'm really glad you actually mentioned connections, because connections was one thing I wanted to actually talk about with the 1 Speed of Elon. I'll throw it back to you, Ryan. This is a horse that was 70-1 on debut, had tons of trouble, and ran a really nice 3rd. But it seems like if this was Rispoli and D'Amato, this horse would be much lower than he probably would be, correct?
Yeah, everybody, this horse is not going to take a lot of action just based on the 0 for 18 trainer over last year, and then 0 for 1 this year. But you see, he had a 3rd, and it was with this horse. This runner looked really well. Got into some trouble. Tyler Bays was aboard that day, so no real surprise there. Gets the swap to Rispoli. Obviously, Rispoli's fantastic, so he's going to save some ground. He's going to make a run towards the end, and as long as we get a fair turf course on Saturday, which I think all the rain is just about done out here, so he has every chance to step up. I know it's a 3-year-old against older again, but I don't know. I like the upside on this one, and it's not every day that you get a Calbred that's out of a Galileo sire, so that's got to be pretty good.
Yeah, I think the fact that Rispoli hops on was enough, just because I think there's a horse, I believe it is Uncle Evco, who Rispoli's ridden several times, and Camarano's on that one. Rispoli comes here. He's going to save ground all the way. Second time, he should improve. So things to like there with the 1 Speed of Elon. Anything you want to add with this horse, Charlie, or you can go ahead and go to the King of Clubs, the 2 who you've got on top.
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on the 1 and then move into the 2. I just thought visually this was, honestly, you could argue the most impressive horse in the field. I agree with what Ryan said. Ran into a ton of trouble. Even looked like a horse that could have potentially, showed a little bit more speed earlier and was trying to, but just kept getting, trapped in and didn't really have anywhere to go. And then looked like Tyler Bates was just waiting to try to press the button, but just couldn't because there was nowhere to go. And you started to see some of the closers go by this one that actually did have space. And then finally off the turn, got some space, but still was a little green and running some trouble. And then closed late and had a fantastic gallop out. And I just think this one could really build off that effort. I know we talked about the concern with being a 3-year-old. Moving into the 2 now, going with a 4-year-old here on top. I know it's switching to the turf. Obviously, that's going to be the big question, but it also is Pratt and Glatt, which is a duo you can't really ignore, and they are successful together. And I trust that if Glatt, thinks a turf switch is what's needed, that this horse can execute. Visually, I thought the effort honestly was fine. Obviously, finished third as the favorite, but looked willing the whole time and had interest, just ultimately couldn't get it done. I don't think the stretch out will be a problem and seems to have a decent workout tab. Obviously, with Pratt aboard, is probably going to get overbet more than I would like for the price. But again, I just also thought visually in the figures kind of show that this 2 could make a ton of sense if he takes to the turf.
Yeah, I was on the fence with the 2 because I've got the stat up there. Let me bring it up again. I kind of forgot what it was. Mark Glatt, 1 for 20, second-time starters moving from dirt to turf, which I thought was pretty surprising because Glatt's a guy that hits at a big percentage normally most of the year. I thought the race that he came out was pretty good. He was a favorite that day, the GM, and then Uncle Chili. So he lost 2 horses that have been winners. The clubhouse rides can pretty much do anything, dirt and turf. There's not a ton of turf breeding on the dam side, but when I watch his works, he's just got like a really high turfy knee action. From what I've seen, it seems like he's talented, but he's a little goofy. Was stuck on his left lead for a while in the debut, and then even when I watched his work, I don't remember if I watched the February 10th one or the February 17th, but he was just really late to switch it. So it seems like he's got talent. Just seems like he's got to put it together. And I don't really know if I want to find out at such a low price because I think these connections will be bet. So I've got him in the mix. I've got him on the ticket, but I think he could be a little low in a race that I think there are some others to consider. I'm actually going to talk about a horse that I absolutely find fascinating. It's the 4 Going Nowhere. We mentioned that, or I mentioned this before the show. I think this horse could legitimately be like 20 or 30 to 1 on the morning line. You look at his races, and of course they're slow. It was 2 Stakes Company maiden 50 claimers. Both of them were on turf, both of them were on dirt. I'm losing it here. But in both of those races, it looks like he wants to go a little bit further. I've got a stat over in the right corner. Ellis is 23% in maiden race on turf, and the average payout is $54. So everything with this horse lines up there. The Ohms have primarily been on turf, 22% in turf sprints, but over 8 in turf routes. But it's been a limited sample size, so I'm always to kind of excuse the fact there. But then if you go to the dam side, Christiana's Heat, primarily a turf horse, was very good, earned over $330,000 in her career. He's got siblings that have won on the turf. I believe he's got 3 siblings that have won the turf. So I don't have to worry about the distance. I don't have to worry about the surface. And if you look at his last race, and it's funny that the name is Going Nowhere because he basically had nowhere to go in the stretch. Got in a really tight spot and then kind of had to go around. Still came with a run. Like I said, not worried about the distance, not worried about the surface. Just a matter of whether he's good enough and if he's able to elevate that buyer on the turf. I want to get a gauge from the gallery. Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, anyone? Am I crazy?
No, you might be crazy unless this horse starts taking money and you know that Ron Ellis is betting on his horse, and Ron Ellis loves to, hammer his horses. So if he's doing that, then you might have a shot, and you'll certainly get a good price.
All right, that's good enough for me. Let's go to the 10, who I believe is it Uncle Echo or is it Fight Back, Jackson?
It's Fight Back.
Okay.
I needed a horse in third. I'm going to be all 2-3 here. So again, just taking a 4-year-old the 3-year-olds are just at such a big disadvantage at this stage of the year. I bet against them in August, and we're in the middle of February, so I think they're really up against it at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We'll go ahead and move on to the third leg, but before we do that, let's switch that over. I'm going 4-1-2. Ryan's going 8-1-2. Charlie's going 2-8-1. And Jackson is going 3-2-10. The next race that we're going to be talking about is race 12 at Gulfstream. It's up on the screen. It is another maiden special weight race going 7 1/2 furlongs on the turf, purse of $94,000 for 3-year-old colts. Another big field of 10 and 1 also eligible in the 11, Devlin's Knight and Irish Bred for Zayas and Walsh. I believe Zayas would maybe choose that horse if that horse decides to get in, or if there's a scratch that constitute that horse to become into the body of the field. I'll go ahead and get the picks up for GP Race 12. Another one we're very different. I'm going 4-1-8. Ryan's going 6-1-10. Charlie at 1-11-6. And Jackson 3-1-6. I believe, Jackson, you're the only one that I haven't gone to first. So I'll let you go first this time with the 3 Golden Channel for Joe Bravo, who we mentioned, and George Weaver. I believe this is the second timer for the Weaver barn, correct?
Yes, that's right. I don't remember if you said it or not, but Zayas' first call is the 11. I can't remember if you clarified that.
Oh, okay.
But it is his first call is the 11 in this race. This is a race I feel like this might be the one where people get a little skinny in here. I didn't think it was a super deep field. And I thought that race on January 18th was a pretty good group that day. And it was a race that completely fell apart. Everyone in the top 4 kind of came from way out of it. So I wanted to give Golden Channel another shot in here. I thought he ran well, went straight to the front, set it on his pace, and hung in there pretty late. He was up there very late, and final furlong, he just kind of hit a wall. But you can be forgiving of that effort. Again, the pace kind of fell apart. It was his first start. He was doing it around 2 turns. And they really wanted to get him to the grass anyway. So he wasn't, there were some things to like about that debut. I think he'll probably take a step forward in this spot. He's drawn really well again. He has that debut to build off of. And I feel like he's going to be a much better price than a horse like the 6, who I also have in the mix.
Yeah, it looks like he could, be one of the few speed types in here. It seems like with the Gulfstream turf that we've seen, I don't know so much with the rails down, but it seems some of these races, I think it's really hard to make up ground on the turf. I think this horse could play a big factor in what happens with the 1 after taxes, who I believe, Charlie, you are very fond of. It seems like those 2, the speed types. Are you just thinking after taxes is fast enough to kind of go and leave the 3 in the dust? Are you a little bit worried that the 3 could put some pressure on the 1?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some horses that just naturally, obviously we're going to have some questions with the firsters, and I think naturally this 3 is going to show a lot of speed. I just don't think any of them, quite honestly, are as fast as after taxes. I'll get to the AE in a moment if that horse does get in. I saw enough talent in that horse that I'd be a little wary. But I think after taxes is clearly the class of the field. I think if this 11 doesn't go in, I know we talked about it before the show. No, I think this Warrior is going to be a heavy favorite and probably be 6 or 7-5, maybe 8-5 at most. The debut obviously wasn't great, but ran against Governor Sam, ran against Jackson's favorite test score. And then after that comes back.
And no evidence won this weekend too. Sorry.
No, you're good. Comes back off the layoff in New York and loses by a head and just misses. And then they go for the stretch out, which I always think is interesting with Wards, because normally you just associate it with true turf sprints, at that 6 furlong distance or shorter. But this one very easily ended up taking to that mile. They set real fractions and did not fade back by any means. I know Versus Noah was a horse you and I, we used both those horses, really liked. And that horse had a really nice turn of foot late and was able to get there just in time to get up for the win. But I think if after taxes runs back, Papa Golf came back as a favorite and didn't win, but, ran a decent effort. I just think, honestly, if after taxes runs back to that last effort, I think he just goes around the track and wires the field.
Yeah, I know Papa Golf came back with a pretty similar number to what he got in this main special weight race where they face against each other. I thought Papa Golf did not necessarily really flatter that form. I guess that would maybe be the only worry, along with maybe the 3 pressing the 1. But agree with everything you said. I think the 7.5, that just very slight cutback could definitely work in his favor. Ryan, you've got the 1 in second as well, but I want to hear what you have to say about the 6, Tomasello for Castellano, and I believe 1 of 2 entrants for Mr. Marcassi.
Yeah, this one, Castellano's aboard again, keeps the mount. I love the race last time. They tried to get this one on the turf, but it came off due to weather. This one had the lead, coming for home and just got caught a little late. So I love the cutback of, I believe it's a full furlong, if I'm doing my math correctly right now, 8.5 down to 7.5. So yeah, I would imagine that if this one is in a similar spot, Drew Post 11 last time out, gets a much cozier spot. This time going the 7.5. I would imagine this one just sits a nice trip and hopefully, builds on that stamina he had from the first time going 2 turns and is able to just keep the lead this time and finish it off. So I think just the series of turf works that this runner has, one definitely is going to appreciate the grass, assuming he gets on. And I have that's pretty much it. Authentic, not great. turf routers, but out of a Warfront dam, and I'll trust Mark Cassidy to place his horses correctly. So I like this one on the slide cut back.
Yeah, I'm not a big authentic guy myself. Jackson, I got a question. What was the yards to furlongs conversion for one of the first shows that we did? Do you remember?
Jeez.
It's the name of our group chat.
I don't know. I think 1,000 yards is like 8 furlongs or something like that. I get confused.
Yeah, of course, that's the name. I never look at that. I always just look at the messages. Jackson, I will go. Actually, tell me what you think about the 6.
Yeah, well, first of all, this horse is living proof that paired up Top's improvement is a real angle because he did it in his first 2 starts to start number 3. So I just want to point that out real quick. No, like Ryan said, he ran really well last time. I talked about that race with the 3 horse. That race kind of fell apart. He was the one that made the first move, got the lead, and actually got past like he was going to give it up, and then fought back really well. Almost came back to win that race. So I don't know if that necessarily means he's supposed to get better at 7.5. Maybe one's even further than mile 16. I don't know, but he's one that makes a lot of sense. If the 1 and 3 do get in each other's way, I'd imagine he'll be the one that gets the first jump.
Yeah, it's actually funny that all 3 of you have this horse in the mix. I am completely against this horse. Number 1, for the reason that you mentioned, Jackson. I think he actually wants to go longer.
Yeah.
And number 2, I don't really know if he fought back. I think King of Ashes just kind of lost focus and didn't really hang, but hung enough to make things interesting because he had the lead by the length, the 16 pole, and then just kind of got weary. I thought a little leg weary. So I think the 73 is going to make people bet him. I think he'll probably be the second choice in the race. Have no faith in him, absolutely. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of the authentics, especially on turf. So a little against Tomasello. If he wins, I'll probably be out of the Coast to Coast Big 5, but I might be out of it before that anyways. So it might not matter. Let's go ahead and talk about the 8 interim analysis. Actually, I'll mention the 8 because nobody's got the 8. Ryan, I was surprised you didn't have this horse because I remember you liked him last time. This is the second Mark Cassidy entrant who did not break great. Was in a race that I think is going to come back pretty live. You can see the AE Dublin's Knight finished second in that race. I thought this horse just had a lot of trouble. He was very green. It looked like a race where he needed one. Raylu is one that I don't think he's gotten quite the opportunities, which is why he's at 6%. But Raylu was a guy that I cashed several tickets on at Del Mar over the summer. So got my faith in Raylu. I think he'll be a bit of a price too. Warville on the turf, I'm a good fan of. So interim analysis I think is interesting. So that's the 8. Let's go to the well, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about the AE because Charlie, you've got him in second. This is the horse that I just mentioned ran second, and I believe when we talked about this, when I watched the workouts when we were talking about this, I believe this race was the first race on Pegasus Day, if I'm correct. This horse is massive. I don't know how many hands he is, but he is just a big, funky individual, and it looks like if he puts things together, he could certainly get the job done.
Yeah, I think the big concern naturally for this one, even if he gets in, and you can add on, know if you agree or disagree. I actually thought a mile might have even been a little short. I know, as you know, you mentioned naturally he's a bigger horse, and it looks like he might want more distance. Obviously, lost to a monster in Wakan, who, 2 back got probably the most trouble and worst ride in horse racing history, and then this time without having the jockey try to lose, came back and wired the field and looked really impressive doing it. But yeah, Dublin's Knight, for a first-time starter, looked impressive. Obviously, naturally, when you don't see Tyler G on a Brendan Walsh, you get a little more nervous. But, I thought Ocean Murphy honestly did a solid job. It just honestly ended up coming down to, again, I think just a big funky horse figuring things out. And I do think this one will take a ton of money if it does get in because they'll see Walsh, they'll see the 74, and then the horse took money on debut. And I think it would be rightfully so. I think the big concern, and I know Noah, since you're the only other one who really knows much about this one besides me, you can push back if you disagree. But I think the biggest struggle this one might run into is I think he might just need a little more distance.
Yeah, I think it could be that. Could be a mixture of that and just not a great post. But again, he kind of overcame that last time, so maybe that worry is something that I shouldn't be worrying about. Let's go to you, Ryan. You've got the 10 and 3rd Abundance. This is a horse that's coming out of the King of Ashes and Tomasello race. Puts blinkers on for Zayas and Pletcher, and one that looked to want to get the turf last time but didn't get it.
Yeah, another one that the intention of turf was there, and I just don't think this one handled the synthetic very well, but definitely came with a bit of a late run and showed some interest. I think the blinkers are going to help sharpen this one up. The post position concerns me. That's going to be pretty wide going to 7.5. So that's why I could pick this one no better than 3rd, because I think you're going to lose a decent bit of ground. Even with the rails down, I think that's going to be an issue. But I'll took a little bit of interest at the windows last time, went off at a little under 8-1. And again, just drawn too wide for me to pick this one higher, but I love the blinkers on, getting this one to turf for real this time.
For real this time. Wow, I love that. This is a horse that Rob N likes because I guess it's a South Park reference. I'm not a South Park guy.
Timmy!
Of course.
What is
Yeah,
that?
gotta love it. You don't know Timmy?
If it's a South Park reference, I know the reference you're talking about,
Park reference.
then that's an incredible name for a horse. That might make this horse a single. I might have.
Did you say Jackson?
I thought it was a Stuart Scott reference because every time he would have Tim Duncan on the SportsCenter highlights, he'd be Timmy every time.
I will tell you though, if this horse runs like Timmy, that horse has no chance.
Oh no!
Last horse we will touch on is another horse that I've actually got on top. This is the 4 World Beater. I know a lot of times we like to mention that in some races where it's pretty competitive, we like to say that there are no world beaters in this race, but there actually is one in this race. It's the number 4. This is for Jorge Ruiz and Riley Mott. This is another horse that I think is very turf meant. Oscar Performance with a blame dam. First 2 races. First was at 6 furlongs, then a mile 16th at Keeneland. I think we're just very tough. And I think this horse, like I said, is turf meant. Gets Lasix for the first time. Has been off since October. So I think there's some progression from 2 to 3. I was able to watch his work on January 19th, going 4 furlongs and 46-2. Not only was it fast, I thought he looked really good. So I've got confidence that he's going to take to the turf. Just a matter of whether he's ready. Riley Mott's runners have been running pretty well, 4 for 24, 17% so far. Not a big Jorge Ruiz fan, but hey, if the horse is good enough, he's going to get the job done. So I've got him on top, as well as a couple others in my Coast to Coast pick 5. But I think that's all that we need to talk about in this race.
Real quick, Noah. Sorry, as you get it changed over, I saw a comment asking about post positions or gate positions, rather going to 7.5 because it's a bit of a funky distance. So I just pulled it up. Out of 15 races of horses in post positions 1 through 6, the 1, 2, and 3 are winning at 73% of those races. And then as you go out, there's only been 3 winners from post 2 winners from like 10, 11, 12 races. Basically, you don't want to be in the post 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12. You're pretty much hung out in no man's land. So yeah, Timmy has 6 winners of 15 races going to 7.5. So Timmy might be a single. You know, if the 1 and 3 hook up, it might be time.
That's a must bet on the side. It's a must bet.
I'm hoping if Timmy wins, I'm hoping Pete Aiello gives a great call on that.
That's going to be a hell of a call. Howard asks, he says, so weird Mott started before on dirt. Why is that? I'm not quite sure. But I think it's going to be a decent price, so I'd like to find out. Jackson?
Derby fever. Everyone gets it.
DFS?
You got to find out. They go around the dirt.
We're good friend Paul Haller in DFS? I think that's a good way to put it.
Exactly.
We'll go ahead and move on to the next race. I'm going 4-1-8. Ryan's going 6-1-10. Charlie 1-11-6. And Jackson's going 3-1-6. Let me get the next race up on the screen. Of course, it is a turf race, and it's race 7 at Santa Anita. This is another maiden special weight, another race going a mile, $60,000 purse, big field of 12 with 1 also eligible in the 13 Morozic's Old Dream for Diego Herrera and Antonio Garcia. Again, big field of 12. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the screen here. Another race where we are all over the place. I'm going 1-8-12. Ryan's going 2-1-4, excuse me. Charlie's going 9-4-10, and Jackson is going 4-11-12. I believe, Charlie, it is your turn to go first with the number 9 Orange Thunder for Kyle Frey and the big red blinkers of Mr. Craig Lewis.
You know what? Even though this race is tough, it's worth it, so I don't have to go first for the last race of the sequence. Look, this is a really tough race. I don't want to sound like a broken record because I know we've been saying that about this entire card, but that's why we're saying if it pays under 10K, it'd be a surprise. I thought Orange Thunder was really impressive last time. If you go and watch that replay, I mean, it literally just looks like a 2-horse race between the horse who's the 1 in this current field and the ultimate winner of the race, Lady Mendelssohn. And you're just watching a 2-horse race the entire time. And then all of a sudden, a horse just absolutely comes flying from the clouds, which is Orange Thunder, and got up and nailed the 1 horse that you have on top, Noah, for second, and nearly got there for the winner and galloped out nicely. I just thought that this was an effort where I understand, this horse has had plenty of tries and has finished 5 out of 6 times in the money and hasn't quite gotten there. But to me, visually, even though there's no big buyer number, quote unquote. And a lot of them are just in these 50s. Visually, that effort to a 69 to me looked like a big jump. I watched some of the other replays. I don't think this horse wants anything to do with 6 or 5. I think this one I think she absolutely wants at least a mile. And I just thought visually her effort last time out, the way she was able to close from that far back was a new gear to her that she didn't show before.
Yeah, I think the race last time is probably going to be close to good enough to beat this field. I don't want to speak for Ryan and Jackson, but why I don't have her in the top 3 is I feel like we just kind of seen what she is, and maybe there's some upside with others. I'll let Ryan and Jackson maybe touch on that a little bit when we get to their horses. Ryan, you're going with a horse that does have a little bit of upside, finished second in a race to a horse that we are going to talk about in a little bit. Guilty of Having Fun, the 2-horse for the Andy Mathis barn, and gets a rider upgrade with Mr. Frankie Dettori.
Yeah, Frankie aboard here. Obviously, no slight to Aguilar, but I mean, Dettori is Dettori. So, second time off the break here. You see Andy Mathis is 25%, second off the 45 to 180-day layoff, almost a $3 ROI, which is spectacular. This one gets second time Lasix, second time routing. I mean, everything fits to this horse firing his best effort, other than a paired up buyer top type angle. So, I love the second off the bench. This one should be tactically placed. Dettori's going to have this one in the right spot. Sir Prancelots are fantastic with turf routers. Bottom Side Dam was also a turf router in her career. So all about it for this one runner here.
Jackson, I know you saw this coming.
Yes. I'm doing it. As soon as I give away my top pick, I'm doing it.
Well, let's go ahead and do it. This is a horse that I just mentioned. Hello, Kid O, Kid O. It's going to be a tough one for Mr. Frank Mirabati. This is another one where it's kind of a similar angle to the horse you liked earlier. First race going along on the turf, coming with a 60 buyer. It's 30-1 that time. Should be a decent price. What do you like about this horse?
Yeah, this is a brutal race. It's wide open, full field. They all look kind of the same. I think it's going to be a good pace. They're going to go at a good tempo in this race. I think the one's going to go. Frankie's going to completely send out of what you're talking about, Ryan. That's all he does. He just goes to the front with his horse. So, he'll be up there. There's a lot of speed. And, last time there really wasn't in the race she was in. The first 3 finishers the first horses that were the top 3 kind of just went along at a reasonable pace and kind of separated from the field. This is the only horse that did really any running from the back. And I was impressed that she was able to close the gap on those ones. Just barely missed. Now she's in a field where there should be a lot more pace, a lot more help up front. And, she's got to work out a trip in a big field like this, but she's going to be a big price again for connections like this that don't usually take a whole lot of money.
I think if you are approaching this race from obviously a handicapping standpoint, there are 3 key races that most of the runners come out of. There's the How About Paval race. There is the Lady Mendelssohn race. And then there's one more race. It's the America's Mark race. So those 3 races, most of the horses are coming out of. My personal opinion, I think the America's Mark race is the best. I don't know if that's actually the best buyer, but I do my homework. I watch my replays, and I thought that was the best race. Actually, the horse that I have on top is coming out of the race that I like the second most. It's Lady Mendelssohn race. This is a horse that got the lead last time, the number 1 Sassafran. This is for JJ and Gary Mandela. I believe Jackson just left to go make some toast, so we'll hear from him in a little bit. This is a horse that is a 3rd-time starter, made a big improvement from start 1 to start 2. That was on the stretch out. And she just kind of sent like hell to get the lead last time. I don't know if she's going to necessarily do that because the 8, who I've gotten second for Maldonado and Doug O'Neill, I think is most likely going to get the lead. But I think JJ is going to sit a good spot in the pocket. I don't think she needs the lead. I thought she hung around pretty well last time, even though the rails were out. I thought she was just a really gutsy effort. And she was only a head behind Orange Thunder, who you talked about, Charlie. And I thought she just pretty much did the dirty work in that race. So I think if she's able to show a little bit of a new dimension, kind of sit in the pocket, maybe second or third. Jackson actually got the toast out, which is very surprising. I didn't think he was actually going to do that. But I'm going with the number 1 Sassafran as my top choice. And Ryan, you've got her in second. Anything to add there while Jackson is making some bread and butter?
Yeah, Sassafran, you mentioned it, sent like a banshee last time. I was told that I don't know what I'm talking about with Guilty of Having Fun, but with Maldonado and Doug O'Neill teaming up on a sprinter going to 2 turns, that runner's going to the lead, and Frankie's not dumb enough to duel with that runner. So Frankie's going to sit right behind. He's going to take over top of the stretch, and he's going to win.
I seem to recall a certain race on Pegasus Day when he was.
We don't talk about that race. We don't talk about
that one. But yeah,
Gulfstream Speedway got to him. That doesn't count. Gulfstream Speedway got to him. He got too excited.
Absolutely. So Sassafran, second time routing, another angle that I like. Gets second time Lasix, Gary Mandela. You might get a bit of a fair price. I know Mandela's, only 2 for 26 last year, and he's 0 for 6 to start this year, but Maximus Mischief has produced some really nice runners. Obviously, Candy Ride on the bottom side. Turf is no problem. He's proven that he likes the turf, or she has proven that she likes the turf. So I don't know what kind of ride to expect, but has clearly done okay on the lead and a little worse from off of it. But I think second time routing, this one's going to fire her best effort.
I'm glad you like her as well. We've talked about the 1, 2, 4, 8, and 9 so far. Let's talk about the 3 outside runners. Going back to you, Charlie, with the 10, Big Whoosh, who is one that is coming out of the How About Pavel race, which I think was personally the worst race, but everyone sees the races differently, and one that was running on late for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't entirely disagree. I did my homework watching those races too. I do actually think Jackson's top pick is the most interesting runner in that race, and is probably, you could argue, the most interesting runner in this field, and has the most upside, being that was a horse running primarily on dirt, and then that was the first turf effort and looked pretty good. That being said, the only other horse really in that race that did a lot of closing from the back was Big Whoosh. This one, I will say, her big concern, I'm not going to lie, a lot of the horses I used underneath this one, and I almost used the 12, which I'll let Jackson talk on, are closers, and I'm a sucker for closers. And quite honestly, I thought the speed in this race were a bunch of horses that just couldn't finish the job, so I'd rather take my chance with a closer. She does have a tendency, well, granted, it's only been 2 races, to not really break with any speed at all, and then leave herself with a ton of work to do to try to make up for it. But I thought she did a much better job actually making up for it and not just running in place last time out, as opposed to 6 furlongs. Granted, I also think with her lack of early speed, trying to go 6 furlongs was just never going to be the answer long term. She's certainly going to have to improve and find a way to either show more speed or develop an even stronger late kick, which I think this early in her career is a tough ask. So I'm going to hope she shows a little more speed, but I also think I'll get some decent value. I know she was 4-1 that day, but I think there's going to be others in that race that people prefer to bet on. And I do think if there is enough of a meltdown, though, she could certainly at least take a piece.
Yeah, Ryan's really giggling over something. I'm not quite sure.
Jackson's getting his toast, and it's not even done yet. Be patient, brother.
Yeah, it's gonna be like 4 or 5 minutes, guy. I love that.
It's gotta be properly made toast for him. He's not just taking anything.
Jackson? Are you a burnt toast guy, or just
close to it? Close to it. Not all the way.
Well, while you're waiting for your toast to turn black, you can talk about the 11 We the Hobby and the 12 Almond Joy, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the last.
Yeah, I liked her last 2 efforts. The 1-2 back came against Take Another Card, who we saw come right back to win the California Cup Oaks. So she's a pretty good one for, I believe it's Callahan. And the 1-2 back, she dueled, put away pace rivals, and just got gunned down by a pretty good filly. And then last time she went the mile and was in chase mode the whole time. It's not an easy trip pressing on the turf. I think dirt is a trip you want. On the turf, not so much. And I thought she fought pretty well all the way to the wire. Got the lead at some point, just got a little tired late. But now the blinkers go off, leg 6 goes on, and you get the best turf jockey in the colony to work out a trip from this outside post. So I don't think she's going to be on the lead in this spot. I think they're probably going to try to rate her a little bit like they did earlier in her career. And another one that's going to be a bit of a price, probably just due to the post position.
Yeah, I think so too. Moves over from Peter Miller to the assistant trainer, Ruben Alvarado. Finish us off with the 12 Almond Joy, who I also haven't heard.
Yeah, this is one that I've always felt would be better going longer, while just watching her gallop out and everything. And I know their two turn races weren't much, but I don't know. I keep watching her gallop out really strongly in these sprint races and just not quite getting there. Maybe at this point she just is what she is, and that's a 1-run sprinter. But I wanted to give her one more chance in this race, where again I think she's going to be a very big price in a race that is completely wide open.
No, I like it. I've got some similar thinking. I was worried. I'm glad you brought that up, because the 1-2 turf race was really bad. It was the second worst of her career. But when I watched that last race, it looked like, she would appreciate that. So kind of on the fence. Don't know how she's going to be able to work out from that outside post, but if she's able to, I think she's certainly capable. We'll move on to the last race of the coast to coast, but in race 7 at Santa Anita, the penultimate leg, I'm going 1-8-12. Ryan's going 2-1-4 as Jackson takes a huge bite of his toast. Charlie goes 9-4-10, and Jackson goes 4-11-12. That's like some ASMR, right, Jackson?
Absolutely.
Let's move on to the finale. The finale of the coast to coast. is going to stay at Santa Anita. And this might be the most difficult race that we've ever talked about on the show because
I see who Noah's single is.
I had to quite the challenge with this one. Race 9 at Santa Anita. It's allowance optional claiming $50,000 going down the hill, 6 1/2 furlongs on the turf versus $61,000. This is for, like I said, $50,000 optional claiming. Big field and wide open field of 12 and two AEs. One of them we will definitely talk about in the 13 Noble Reflection, and then the 14 Grams, aka Patrick Kunsel himself, Moody Jim, who is 9 years old at this point in his career. We most likely won't talk about him. I know Charlie appreciates that joke. I'll go ahead and get the picks up on the screen for the finale. Another race where we're all over the place. I'm going 6-5-13, Ryan 4-10-11, Charlie 8-5-4, and Jackson 7-12-13. Charlie, I won't make you talk about this one. I'll throw it to Jackson with the 7, Santo Dios, the Argentinian bred, for Jeremy Laprida, who I haven't seen in a while, and Marcelo Polanco. What'd you like about this horse?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see his name in the entry box too. But look, this is another race where it's we keep saying it, but it's so tough. It's so wide open. I needed someone that I know is going to be a square price on top. So I went with them. I want to be a little forgiving of this last two. The two back one to the dirt, he obviously did not handle it at all. And then last time, he took a lot of money for his first start in a long time. And it was against a lot of these same horses. Obviously, he didn't do any running that day. But again, he hadn't run in a very long time. So I want to be a little forgiving of that and focus on his races 3 and 4 back. Because if he gets back to those efforts, he should be pretty tough in this spot. The 1-3 back, going a mile, that was a good field where they set a fast pace. He was wide the whole time and made an early move. Got in contention late and then just got a little tired once they hit that last furlong. So that kind of tells me cut back is what he really needs. The race 4 back down the hill was pretty good. That was a good allowance race that day. He had a tough post. It's really difficult to win from the rail down the hill, as we'll probably talk about a little bit with some of these horses. And I wanted to give him some credit for that good effort in that spot too. So it seems to be working really well since the no-show in late January. So I have to think he'll probably be better than he was last time. And if he gets back to that good form he showed early last year, I think he can be pretty competitive against these.
Yeah, I think you're right. Numbers to go back to a little bit of a dud last time, but was off of a long layoff. He was actually 5-1, which was much lower than some of the horses that actually ran 1 and 2 in that race. I believe Noble Reflection was the favorite in that race. Who's the AE that will mention it. But I like it. Should be a decent price. Nobody else has him in the top 3. But this race is a crapshoot. So I honestly don't find that to be surprising at all. Charlie, let's go to you with a horse just to his outside in the 8 Irish Royalty for Mark Glatt and Diego Herrera.
Yeah, very strong opinion. Was almost going to single this one before I ultimately wanted to click the all button before finding out my budget wouldn't allow me to. This is a very tough race. If you guys can't tell by seeing just how all over the place we've been in this race, I mean, we've had some races earlier where everybody's had a different winner, but at least we've had a lot of the same underneath. We're all over the place, which makes me feel a little bit better about how I saw this, being that I'm not the Cali kid. I thought Irish Royalty was interesting. Has a steady work tab. I also like that he's only 5. I'm sorry, Patrick, but I don't love betting the Gramps horses unless I'm at Arlington back in the day. Has been really consistently in the money. I thought honestly ran a pretty decent effort at 7-1 last time, losing by only a half a length. Just got stuck between and then just ultimately wasn't good enough to get the job done. I also thought that it was solid that he's had at least a few opportunities to run at this, down the hill distance, which isn't necessarily for every horse. And I understand the efforts haven't been amazing, but they also have been, 2 solid efforts. The figures matched with what he was doing at the time. And I also just think it's kind of interesting that for a horse who was kind of plateauing out at the low 70s, he then comes back off a layoff and pops an 87 and a 90. And I just think for a younger horse who also seems to suddenly be improving at 5, I think he has a lot more upside than some of these other horses.
I figured I'd show little snippets of that race because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 horses coming out of that race in that field of 9. So I think you definitely have to watch that race to formulate an opinion in this finale of the Coast to Coast. Why are my PPs not cooperating? There we go. I agree with everything you said. One that I considered to throw in my top 3, but did not do it, along with Ryan and Jackson, which again adds to the difficulty of this race to close out the sequence. Ryan, let's go to the horse that you have on top. Money makes money. If you are alive to this point, you are going to be making some money. And maybe we can do it with this 4 here. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like this horse. I know the buyer figures look a little bit light, but something tells me this horse is coming in here in good shape. Mark Glatt, obviously phenomenal off these types of layoffs. I love when the horses, turf horses specifically, come back off the layoff and go down the hill. It's just easier for them. You're going down the hill for the first 3 odd furlongs of that race. So, gravity's taking you a lot of the way, and you don't really have to use up a lot of, stamina and effort compared to going 6.5 on the flat. So I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping for a decent price, but Pratt, Glatt teaming up. This one certainly has some forward ability, has proven last time out in the maiden win, going 5 furlongs at Del Mar, that he can sit behind a couple horses and then, make a move top of the stretch. Decent post position here. So I'm just hoping Pratt does the right thing as he normally does and then gets the run on everybody. I didn't love a lot of the turf form in this race. A lot of them either struggle to win or aren't very consistent. And this one has never been out of the money in his 4 starts. I know they've all been against Maiden Company. This is first time versus winners. It's a big step up. Vertically, probably not going to be a price that I want, but this is a pretty strong opinion in the closeout leg because I think this is a pretty talented runner.
I will say I think he's probably a little slow in comparison to most of the horses in the field. That being said, I think how I use him is going to be dependent on whether the 13 Noble Reflection actually gets into the race, because I think he is one of the 2 speeds, and then other than that, I don't think there's really much speed in the race. So if you get a jockey as high quality as Flavien Prat on the lead and down the hill race, and he's able to go, because those fractions, when they go down the hill, they go sub 22 most often. If he goes anything close to 22, even though he is slow, I think he's talented, so he could certainly dictate things up front. And if he takes them the whole way while the 13 isn't in, I wouldn't be surprised. Anything to add?
Yeah, one thing. I guess 2 things. One, if the 13 Noble Reflection were to draw in, I would probably single that horse. That horse is just the best in the field. Okay. I feel pretty confident with that. But the second point is you have broken your rule and you have picked the number 13 in third, which is an also eligible, which you have been adamant you would never do. And that is the reason I don't have the 13 in here. So I feel a bit betrayed by the host of this show who has broken their cardinal rule. You have nothing left now. That's you got nothing to plant your flag in.
I have no more morals. I'm a terrible person.
Next thing you know, he's going to end up switching and putting this one horse on top as his single with his favorite.
No, that is something I will never do. But yeah, I guess we should probably talk about this horse. I've got him in third with my teeth grittingly. Jackson, you've got him in third as well. You mentioned was the even money favorite in that race, claimed away from Papa Padromo, who's got the one, over to Ruben Alvarado, who we talked about. What do you think? Do you like him more because of that? Do you like him less because of that? Outside post should help, right? And not a lot of speed. What do you think?
Yeah, the only real concern is the barn switch. I mean, you never know how a horse is going to react to new surroundings. But if you're just taking this race strictly based on the form, and this horse kind of towers over this field from a pace perspective, from a post perspective, speed figures. I mean, this horse really should win this race, just based on everything I'm seeing on the racing form. It's kind of just a matter of does he draw on the field or not, and if he does, you got to look out because he'll be very dangerous. And if you are putting the coast to coast pick 5, maybe get a little bit more value out of him because he is an AE, and a lot of people kind of just disregard it with the retail bet only. But there's no CAW.
Yeah, well, the funny thing I found was you can either take this as a positive or a negative. He actually doesn't have a registered work since he was claimed from Papa Padromo, so it could be a negative where obviously he hasn't worked for a while, but maybe a positive to where the Papa Padromo training regimen is still with him, so hasn't switched styles over to Ruben Alvarado. Obviously, Ruben Alvarado does things similarly to Peter Miller. So if you look at it like that, not so much a negative as to maybe getting claimed away from Papa Padromo and maybe a lesser barn on a California circuit. But thought we would mention him because he is an AE. And I did break my rule, so that is, I guess, strike number 1 of the show. Let's go ahead and touch on let's go to the 5 who you've got in second. And I'm surprised none of the Cali boys have this horse in the top 3. That's the 5 guy named Joe. Charlie, you've got him in second. I've got him in second. I like him for some reasons, but what say you?
Yeah, I think he's run against, you could argue, some of the best horses in this field. Ran against Stay Hot, Endlessly, Neat, Cugino, of course, My Monster, Ligano, shout out him for finally winning a race. But obviously the concern with this one is going to be the 1 for 11. That being said, you do also see, 7 other times outside of that in the money and running against some very serious fields here. The other question will be the cutback in the distance. That being said, this one ran at 6.5 and ran a really nice third. To be honest with you, I thought about putting this one on top, but ultimately, I just think Guy Named Joe is going to be a short price in this field, and in a race this wide open, kind of like what Jackson was talking about earlier with his 7, I'd like to at least put a price on top in a race where I don't feel that confident or strong in a horse, assuming as of now, again, that the 13 is out. Gets JJ aboard again. Also, shout out Guy Named Joe for just being a friend of the podcast. I know in the past, Noah, when you were on B&B with us before this show, we were covering California, we somehow always cover this horse trying to break its maiden, and we would always pretty much all of this horse to win, and it wouldn't happen. And, finally got it done. So, fair enough to him. But yeah, I think he has a lot of figures that match. He's very classy in this field, has strong connections, and it'll take a lot of money. The question will just be, can he actually get over the hump and win again?
Yeah, I think it's a big question whether he's able to do it against older horses, but because again, he's a newly turned 4-year-old, has been facing strictly 3-year-olds. But those 3-year-old races I thought have been pretty good. He lost to Formidable Man twice, lost to King Gosford once. O'Neill had the courage to ship him over to Keeneland last spring in the Transylvania. So I think he's pretty well met. And I don't think he really needs to step up that much in the time that he's been absent to compete with some of these runners. I think the highest buyer in the field is maybe a 90 or 91. So if he runs like a mid-80s, high 80s, I think that's going to put him right in the mix. Let's bring up this Jim from comment because I relate to this totally. Before the show, I was planning to play a blind caveman ticket using the top 3 selections of the group. My calculator just laughed at me when I tried to come up with the cost. Yeah, that is definitely accurate. But yeah, agree with everything you said about the 5 Guy Named Joe, Charlie. I'll touch on this horse I've got in top, Dancing Rinka, who I've got on top and is 1 for 21, which just completely tells you the difficulty of this race. Ran second to the 1 King Apollo last time, who I'll let somebody in the group touch on, even though none of us have him in the top 3 for obvious reasons. But came out with a 91 buyer. His 2 races that have been at Santa Anita since he was up in New York, I thought I've been pretty good. Lost a Noble Reflection, but Noble Reflection kind of got things his own way up front and ran a nice second with an 81. And then, like I said last time, came back with that nice 91. Had to kind of weave in and out through traffic. So I think if he gets a clear run, gets a big rider upgrade to, I believe somebody mentioned the best turf rider in the circuit, Mr. Hector Barrios. So like him a lot. Don't love the 1 for 21, but hey, it's that kind of race. Before we move on to tickets, I'll leave it up to the gallery. Any horses that anyone wants to touch on?
Yeah, quick shout to the 2. Ghostly Act is coming in off 2 back-to-back wins. Watch this one. If this one's another nice price, definitely could surprise. Is in razor sharp form right now. Ran a career best buyer last time out, going down the hill at 6.5, which is obviously that horse for course angle. So yeah, maybe just kind of figured things out. I know it took him a while, but if he's a really decent price, then certainly one to look out for.
Charlie, Jackson, anyone?
Oh my God, voice was struggling on you there, right?
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everyone. I want to shout out the one, just in case you want to add anything. Noah, obviously your top connections here, has a lot of buyers that certainly fit. I don't know if it affects you at all. Obviously last time also won with your top jockey on top. So maybe that's another angle for you as well. Somehow went off at 10-1 on this horse. Don't really know how. I thought with the IRAD tax of California with DeSormo, this one would be even money, but people got lucky that day, caught sleeping. And I'm just wondering, Noah, why this horse isn't a single for you, especially in a race like this.
I knew this is a mistake to bring him on. 10-1 last time, and he's going to be 7-2, 4-1, something around there. I want no part of that. He ran a 91 buyer, which is a career buyer top at 6, and the 2 races before that were a 74 and a 76. So he can beat me for obvious reasons. So don't have him anywhere. Jackson, anyone you want to touch on?
Yeah, let me just talk about the 12 real quick. It was my second choice. Just one that if he's ready off the layoff, he can be really tough, especially if the 13 doesn't draw in. Got a really good post. Toss last race, obviously the layoff came after, so something went wrong. But the race 3 back was really good. 2 back, he had a lot of trouble in that spot, and that was a pretty good field that day. So he's got to look. I know if his horse wins, it'll make Ryan mad because he loves Mike Smith. So that's just a bonus for me. So I want to give him a good chance in the spot too.
I like it. I think
little 112 exacta box of Noah and Ryan jockeys.
Yeah,
that's a smart thing.
I'm in.
Let's go ahead and move on to our Coast to Coast Pick 5 tickets. Gave the boys a $100 budget. We'll start with Jackson. His ticket 6 with 2-3 with 1-2-3-6 with 4-11-12 with 4-7-12-13. A very ambitious single with the 6 in the first leg. Unfortunately, I don't think they have a coast-to-coast pick 4. So if the 6 does not come home, you will be playing someone side, correct?
Listen, I'm trying to be the only winning ticket for this thing because it's impossible. I really do like Big Beautiful. I think she got a really good shot, and there's a lot of unknowns with the Europeans and the horses that we do know about. I don't like any of them like at all. So if we're alive after that, I'll be very, very happy in that spot. But we're gonna try to get home there with the 6 Big Beautiful. Let me pull up the 5th race real quick for me. The second leg is the maiden race around 2 turns. I went with the 2 inside horses. King of Clubs for Pratt and Glatt, and then Anon for Alexis Barbara. That'd probably be my top pick in that spot. I just think both those horses should get really good trips from the inside. Both should be forwardly placed, so they should be pretty tough in that race. In race 12, I did go with After Taxes, Time and Golden Channel, and then Tomasello too. I thought that was a tough race, and I went 4 deep. I feel pretty good about locking that race up with those 4. I don't think I should pat myself on the back for it, but I do think I can lock that race up with those 4. Then get alive to the 7th race. That's the other race, the State Bred race, going a mile for maidens. And again, the top pick is Giovanni. If Giovanni Franco wins a couple of races on Saturday, we're going to make some money. I'll just say that because I have him. Hello, kiddo. Best closer. And then the 2 horses on the outside, I think can make some noise. Almond Joy and We the Hobby. Both of them probably coming from off the pace. And then just going to try to get home with those 4. Maybe I'll play around with the 13 only. Another ticket and a Skinner ticket if he does draw in. But this is a tough sequence. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it is. Good luck with that. We'll go to our next guest, Charlie. His pick 5 ticket 2-3-8 with 1-2-8, singling the 1 After Taxes for Wesley Ward in the finale at Gulfstream. 4-9-10 and 4-5-8 $80 ticket. Charlie, floor is yours.
Yeah, having to work with the difficulty of knowing I need a $400 to $500 ticket, even though I couldn't even afford to play that on my own. And the reality is I only have a $100 budget. So I went with the simple solution of single the most likely winner in the sequence, in my opinion. And honestly, Ryan's stats that he gave about 7.5 furlongs for the inside gates only makes me feel stronger. I think this Wesley Ward, putting any sort of bias or jokes aside, is pretty clearly, at least in my eyes, is the Gulfstream kid, the horse to beat. I also just trust my opinions there quite honestly more than Santa Anita. And then a lot of these other races are tough. I think the first Gulfstream race, I was really hoping I could have stronger opinions in both of them so I could spread more in Cali. But I think we'd all agree, as Jackson was hinting at, there's a lot of unknowns in that first race at Gulfstream. You have a lot of horses from Tapeta and the Euros that we don't really know about. And then for these Santa Anita races, I mean, honestly, all of them are tough. I honestly feel pretty good going 3 deep in the first 2 legs. I feel like I trust a lot of my strong opinions. And I think as a group, a lot of my horses in my top 3, even if they weren't everyone's top choice, were at least in the mix. And then I think the last race is going to be a tough one. Obviously, me having my 8 in the mix, who no one is anywhere on top, just speaks volumes about the difficulty of that race. But I do also like having, Pratt and JJ on the 4 and 5. And I'm hoping, either my 8 shocks or I can get one of the 2 best jockeys there to get me home in the last.
Okay, I think that's a logical spot to single. Good luck with that ticket. Ryan, will go to you. Your pick 5 ticket 2-3-10 with 1-8 with 1-6 with 1-2-4 with 4-10. No single for you, but going with 2 in the last kind of seems like a single. It's very ballsy.
Yeah, didn't really want to. I couldn't find a place to single confidently. I like the 10 a little bit in the last. I think it's a bit sneaky, but I want to make sure when scratches come out. Howard brought up a good point. Brendan Walsh trains 2 in the last at Gulfstream, so Time and Dublin Knight. Maybe he scratches Time to get Dublin Knight in the race, and who knows? So that'll be something to wait and see. But yeah, 2-3-10 in the first. I love the Bill Mott Dirt to Turf one. That is the number 10. I love him probably the most in there if I had to make a choice. And then next leg, I'm going 1-8. Miles Finch is the 8. That's probably my top pick is my top pick in the race. So maybe if I had to single, that's maybe my most likely winner. Going 1-6 in the next. After Tax is definitely the horse to beat. But I think the number 6 in there for Castellano on a board is definitely going to have a big threat if the 3 goes with him and kind of duels him. I think the 6 just kind of sits right off and takes over. Then go 1-2-4 in a tough 7th race, maiden special weight at Santa Anita. And then I'll end it with 4-10 in the last. The Pratt Mark Glatt team is probably my strongest opinion of the sequence. I think that the race just kind of fits for that runner as long as the number 13 doesn't get in. Obviously, if Noble Reflection gets in, that's going to change my ticket pretty considerably because I'll probably have to narrow down elsewhere. But yeah, nice $72 ticket. Just going to press my opinions. It's an impossible sequence. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm not, I'm not.
Yeah, seems like that could be the play if the 13 does draw in the finale. Good luck to you. My ticket, nobody really cares about this, but I'm going to read it off anyways. 2-8 with 1-2-4-8 with 1-4-8-11 with 1 with 5-6-13. I actually did include both AEs on the ticket, so if they happen to both not get in, it would be a much cheaper ticket. 2-8 in the first. In the second line, I got 4 horses, and I believe the 4, who I think is going to be a huge price, I've got in there, of course. Third leg at Gulfstream, the 4 was another one that I talked about that I liked. I think could be a good price. And then I've got the Ward and the 8. I can't remember who the 8 is, but I've got the 8 and then I've got the AE. The 1 is a very bold single. I'm going with the Gary Mandela runner to the inside in race 7 at Santa Anita. And then if I somehow happen to make it through, I'm going with Guy Named Joe, Dancing Rinka, and Noble Reflection to close things out. With
the 8 is interim analysis, if that helps you out at all.
Interim analysis, yes, that's correct. Thank you very much. So that is my $96 ticket. I will go ahead and throw up the final banner. Before we close things off, I want to get a little insight from all 3 of you about this week's Rebel. We just heard, I believe it was yesterday, the Rebel got postponed, and the Rebel and the stakes that surround it got postponed from Saturday to Sunday. They're still going to run it, of course. But I want to get your thoughts, Ryan, on the West Coast shipper, and that is Bullard for the McCarthy Barn.
Yeah, obviously Bullard, I'm very bullish on this runner. Is third last time out to Barnes and Romanesque in the San Vicente, but that was 7 furlongs. This one stretches around 2 turns, obviously out of a gun runner. I think we all are pretty much aware gun runners just clearly get better as they get older. So maybe he doesn't peak in this spot, and I don't think you want the horse to peak in this spot. I think he can make a really good account of himself, hopefully get, third, maybe a good second. There looks to be a decent amount of pace in here. This runner is probably going to be, second, maybe third flight. Definitely a well-bred runner. They definitely have high hopes, and this runner's, pretty much showed that he's had some great ability so far, but I don't know that he would be my, horse I would pick on top in here. Definitely one I would probably key underneath that I would focus my tickets around.
Jackson, the second West Coast Invader, is from the Baffert Barn. It's not the one we expected in Barnes, but it is Madicat Road, a horse that we are very familiar with. What do you think of him and his chances on Sunday?
Yeah, the last race was disappointing, right? When there was the Bob Baffert, Lewis State, whatever it was all the Bafferts, and they just kind of merry-go-rounded around there. I was disappointed in his effort. I was kind of expecting a bit more from him because they did kind of crawl around there, but he got outkicked pretty handily late, not only by Citizen Bull, but also the second place finisher, which was Rodriguez, I believe, or maybe it was Romanesque, one of those two. He just didn't really hang around with those horses late, so that was kind of concerning for me. It probably is a good sign that he's the only Baffert that ships out here. I feel like it's a vote of confidence from the Baffert Barn, but at the price he's got going to be going off at, like, he and Bullard are going to get hammered. They usually bet the SoCal horses out there, so I'd probably be against both of them in that spot, even though they both should. There was a lot of speed in that race. I think you're going to want a closer, who I think Charlie's going to talk about pretty soon.
Yeah, and that closer is Sandman. Charlie, I know you're a big fan of him. What do you think of his chances on Sunday, or maybe some thoughts on some others that you think could maybe upset in this year's Rebel?
Yeah, no, I like Sandman a lot. I feel very, very fortunate and lucky. I know it's still early on, but to at least have one of the horses I picked not look like complete garbage and actually be running right now. Yeah, I think there's going to be a setup. I also like that Sandman has experience on the track that some of these others don't. And I also quite honestly like kind of, building off what Ryan had pointed out, with how you don't want a horse peaking right now. I love, honestly, that Sandman still hasn't really fully put together and figured it out. I actually don't mind at all that, he's still kind of funky. He still, was having a little trouble focusing in the stretch and was starting to, go outwards and couldn't really stay in a straight line, and obviously completely missed the break and was a clear dead last, and still was the clear horse coming from the back and showed plenty of interest as he was flying. I think he's one who will take the distance, and if he can continue to perform well enough, I think would take to the Derby distance down the line. And yeah, I just think he's continuing to get better. He's funky. He reminds me, not that it's the same funky issue, but in terms of being a closer who's funky, it reminds me of another horse that we all know about that's associated with this podcast, but I won't name it for the dark memory it led to down the Derby, because I don't want that same fate for me. But yeah, I think Sandman is one that deserves to get bet and take a lot of money and should be one of the top choices. But selfishly, as someone who's going to play him on the side, I really hope he gets overlooked and I can play him again. I know it didn't work out last time, but I thought it was a very promising effort last time out.
Yeah, Charlie, I was a big fan of him last time, and the way he broke, I thought he had no chance, but ran a huge effort. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he runs. Before we end the show, one thing that I want to remind people of is our Saturday morning live Saudi show. We are doing that with our good friend Davey Lane and Emmett Kennedy of the Final Furlong podcast. Of course,
Shout out Emmett.
Joined us to talk about our reactions to the British Cup races all the way back in November. So we'll have him on the airwaves again. Looking forward to hear his thoughts, and of course, Davey Lane. But that's going to wrap things up for our special guests, Jackson Muniz and Charlie Freeman from Benton and Boozin, as well as my normal co-host, Mr. Ryan Anderson. This has been your host, Noah Meagher, and episode 19 of Pacific Horseplayers, covering the Coast to Coast Pick 5 for Saturday, February 22nd. And of course, PHP out.